All right, welcome, folks. This is the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission. It is the September 4th. We're taking up docket 2406-00145. And this evening, we will be doing public comment. I suppose we probably need to take the roll just to make sure that we exist once again.
Sure. Commissioner Ackerman.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Present.
Commissioner Messner.
Here.
Commissioner Oath. Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Commissioner Shea.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 commissioners present.
Great. And I know that Commissioner Oath is excused and will be listening to the videotape of this before we get into deliberation. So we'll make sure that she's up to speed. Okay, before we dive into public comment, Hearings Manager Thomas, I'd like to recognize you so that you can talk to all of us about the Spanish interpreters that we have available and how all that's going to play out.
Thank you. ECMC is very excited to have Spanish interpreters available for the public comment sessions this evening and tomorrow evening, as well as earlier this week. What will happen if you do need a Spanish interpreter, you will see, and we'll have this all translated in one moment, you will see a globe appear at the bottom of your screen that will allow you to transfer over into a Spanish room where the interpreter will be interpreting public commenters and commission comments. You do not need to do anything if you do not need interpretation. The only other change is when we have Spanish speakers presenting public comment, we will have one of our interpreters interpret those live to the commission as well as interpret any commissioner comments back to them. I think that's it. So if one of the interpreters wants to go ahead and translate what I said, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Cristian Jiménez y estoy aquí con mi compañera Raquel Carpio. Nosotros vamos a estar interpretando para ustedes esta reunión pública, esta reunión de comentarios. En unos momentos en su pantalla va a aparecer un globo en la parte de abajo. Si usted quiere escuchar los comentarios y esta reunión en español, ahí en ese globo usted seleccione la opción de español y nosotros vamos a estar interpretando todos los comentarios del público y también los comentarios de los comisionados. Si usted quiere dar su comentario en español, lo va a poder hacer. Cuando sea su turno, les van a llamar su nombre. Usted la van a hacer una panelista en el Zoom. Usted va a aceptar esa invitación de ser panelista. Entonces va a abrir su micrófono, su cámara, si usted así lo gusta. Le vamos a pedir que dé su versión o dé una frase corta. Nosotros, ya sea Raquel o yo, vamos a interpretar y luego vamos a interpretar los comentarios de la comisión a usted. Si tiene alguna pregunta, levante su mano, lo podemos atender. Y ahorita ya vamos a abrir esta interpretación, así que le pido que lo seleccionen el globo en español. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Really appreciate you having it. So there it is, language interpretation available here. If you need the language interpretation, you click on that button at the bottom. Okay, so this evening we're taking public comment on cumulative impacts and enhanced systems and practices rulemaking. We've got 45 members of the public that have signed up. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 elected officials that have signed up. We normally hear from elected officials first. We're going to hold people tight to the time frames today. The elected officials will have 5 minutes each, and the members of the public will have 3 minutes each. We believe that you can get your points across during that time. And so with that, we will go straight into our hearing. I've got a list of folks that have signed up, and I would appreciate my hearings manager going ahead and kind of keeping 2 or 3 folks ahead of me, lined up in the batter's box and on deck, so that we can just keep moving through it. So, and then also after the folks have testified, remove them from the screen so it doesn't get too jumbled. With that, we will hear from Representative Kathy Kipp. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you so much. And you are in luck because I thought I only had 2 minutes, so that's what I've got for you tonight. I'm Representative Kathy Kipp, and I have served in the State House since 2019 when we passed SB 181. I was on the House Energy and Environment Committee, where we spent a lot of time vetting 181 as it became before us. One of the most important elements to me of 181 was the cumulative impacts requirement. I am extremely disappointed that the ECMC's revised draft on August 2nd rolled back essential protections, which were in the June 14th draft. While the legislature hasn't historically mandated specific setbacks, our directive to the ECMC in SB 24-229 from just this year is clear. Minimize adverse impacts on these communities and provide better opportunities for engagement. The 2,000-foot setback proposal did both. The ECMC has a responsibility to act on legislative intent. It doesn't make sense to make up the new term cumulatively impacted community when the term disproportionately impacted community, which is defined in statute, is comprehensive and provides a more accurate and effective way to target environmental protection efforts. On the topic of pollution controls for the oil and gas industry, let's go back to legislative intent. The initial draft rules aim to meet legislative goals, but the current version does not. Lawmakers required a 30% reduction in NOx emissions by 2025 and 50% by 2030. Wildlife, water sources, and air quality can be affected by oil and gas operations far beyond a 1-mile radius. Determining the actual impact area should be based on scientific data and expert analysis, not an arbitrary limit. As a legislator who has voted on all this legislation, I ask you to please go back to the rules and uphold legislative intent. The ECMC needs to revise the draft rules to align with the original goals of the legislation and ensure a healthy future for all Coloradans. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for your time, Representative Kipp. It's good to see you, and I appreciate you being with us. We now will hear from Representative Hamrick.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Representative Liza Hamrick, and I represent Arapahoe County, Douglas County, Centennial, and Southeast Aurora. And I submitted a detailed letter to you all on August 26th that you can refer to for more specific information. So I represent House District 61 in the General Assembly. House Bill 23-1294 and House Bill 24-1246 were intended to broaden the protections of citizens of Colorado from the potential health and environmental harms of oil and gas operations. In particular, these acts were intended to protect cumulatively impacted and disproportionately impacted communities from adverse health effects. I'm concerned that on the August 2nd, 2024 draft rules, that they don't adequately protect the citizens of Colorado from cumulative impacts of oil and gas operations, as the aforementioned acts required. In enacting these statutes, the General Assembly was particularly sensitive to the effects of these operations on disproportionately impacted communities and cumulatively impacted communities. I'm concerned that the proposed rules do not adequately protect the public health and environment. The proposed rules limit consideration of oil and gas, citing impacts on disproportionately and cumulatively impacted communities. The ECMC must broaden those sections to include any facilities and operations within 2,000 feet of the boundaries of any disproportionately impacted or cumulatively impacted communities. The proposed rules regarding air pollution in the ozone non-attainment area, including NOx intensity targets, but does not consider similar requirements for volatile organic compounds, VOCs. VOCs are also ozone precursors and contribute to the ozone pollution. The rules should require analogous requirements for VOCs that are required for NOx. The proposed rules appear to limit the geographic areas for consideration of impacts to areas within or near the working pad surface location, but operations will extend beyond the working pad surface location in virtually all cases. For example, additional truck traffic and pollution, necessary road construction, and disposal of waste will have obvious cumulative impacts beyond the pad surface. The impact area should include these areas of operation in defining its boundaries. These rules should apply to all pending applications after Senate Bill 19-181 was introduced, as well as newly submitted applications. When a pending ordinance or rule that protects the public health and safety is under consideration, an applicant should not be allowed to evade these protections by submitting an application before the Commission has had the opportunity to complete the required rulemaking process. The title of Senate Bill 19-181 clearly indicated that the General Assembly's intent was additional public welfare protections regarding the conduct of oil and gas operations, and the ECMC should draft its cumulative impact rules to maximize these protections, as the General Assembly has directed. Please honor the intent and directive of the General Assembly and make these corrections. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time and your testimony, Representative Hamrick. We will now hear from Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much. Hi, Commissioners. I'm Representative Elizabeth Velasco. I do want to thank you for the language justice aspect and having language access available for our diverse communities. I think we are hearing a recurring topic. You know, I think many of us, and I'll speak for myself, but as a legislator who has championed and brought forward some of these bills, you know, around environmental justice, around protecting vulnerable communities from oil and gas impact. I represent a community that is heavily impacted by oil and gas production, and that is a disproportionately impacted community. And we see the impacts every day. I mean, from schools having to close because of broken gas lines and broken water lines. And I, just as my colleagues mentioned, I see that this new draft as a rollback of protections for communities. I represent, you know, I have 3 counties in my district, and Garfield County is the second county with the most oil spills. So we know that the impact doesn't stay within the 1 mile radius. The rollback from that 2,000 feet buffer, I mean, that now they're able to go into the buffer without consent from the community. You know, that's a rollback of protections. And also many of the drafting suggestions that were made from the environmental groups were not adopted in the new draft. So we want and we guide y'all to go back to the drawing board and back to bringing these protections forward, because we want our communities to be healthy. We want our communities to be able to thrive, to have access to clean air and clean water. And we feel like we're falling short from the mandate, you know. So I am echoing all the points that my colleagues shared and urge you to go back to the drawing board and prioritize public health, reduce pollution, hold oil and gas accountable, and making sure that we're revising these draft rules, that we align with the goals of the legislation, and that we protect public health. So, you know, I also submitted written comment, and really appreciate that y'all came to visit with us in our community a couple times, and invite you to come again. You know, I think that our community knows best, and really look forward to the work that y'all are going to be working on to make sure that we're protecting community and not weakening the protections. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative, for being with us this evening and testifying before us. We now have Emily Bear, either a trustee or a council member from Erie. I don't know what y'all are called.
We are a town council now. We just
There you go.
went home rule in November. So good evening, Chair Robbins and Commissioners. My name is Emily Bear. I'm a council member in the town of Erie, but I'm speaking to you today as a resident gravely impacted by oil and gas development near my home. Thank you for hosting this public comment period, for listening to and elevating the lived experience of impacted Coloradans whom this rulemaking is intended to protect. Thank you for the work you've done to get to this point. When Commissioners Cross and McGowan came to Erie last December for a cumulative impacts listening session, it was the first time my 12-year-old son shared his very own story of prolonged suffering from exposure illness when he was 7. When we left the rec center that night, he told me he was glad he spoke, but he never wants to do it again. It's hard to speak up as an impacted person. There's a cost to showing up at these tables and sharing such vulnerable experiences, even as we are trying to find answers and heal, even as we grieve. So I'm speaking to you today, holding my fully broken heart and my son's in the strength and determination that comes with that vulnerability. As always, I implore you to recognize the bravery it takes for impacted people to come before you in your seats of power and share their very personal impact stories on a public stage. I urge you to lean in and allow your humanity to connect with theirs, with ours. In a very scientific field, it's easy to get lost in numbers and percentages and map dots and technical terms, but I want to take a moment to zoom us in to the view from my kitchen window, past the backyard fence, 2,500 feet to the north, where in 2017 and 18, the Waste Connections well pad was drilled in the middle of a neighborhood. It's a familiar view in Erie and along the Front Range. I want to bring us back to the purpose of this rulemaking and mission change, and indeed, the very heart of Senate Bill 181, compassion. The monumental shift from state policy that volunteers populations to suffer to a commission that sees and prioritizes people over profit. If at any point as you review this draft and recognize that the rules are aiming to ease the burden on the industry, let that be the moment you recognize we have lost the plot. Edit heavily in favor of health and safety. Edit heavily in favor of our 7-year-olds. I want to applaud the inclusion of a community liaison in the draft rules. Despite my many reports and interactions with the state while my son was so sick, to this day, I don't know if there was ever a file opened on my family's experience or my son's illness. It would have been helpful to have an advocate who was reaching out to us, helping us find answers, helping navigate a difficult regulatory system, ensuring our doctors had access to recommendations for what to look for and how to treat exposure illness in children. Having a contact who advocates for impacted people could be a really great asset for the people of Colorado. There should be These should be comprehensive and ongoing relationships built on trust that stretch well beyond the permitting process. So it's imperative that these liaisons have not worked in the industry. In fact, I would love to see the commission require staff to hire liaisons from DI communities to establish understanding and maintain trust. However, I think there will need to be more than 2 in the state. It will be essential that this is a well-staffed office with a systems approach. Finally, I want to share my concern with CICs versus DICs. It looks like this is a distinction that serves to create ease for the industry rather than truly protect impacted people. Having different metrics that prioritize health and safety differently creates disparity and pits communities and neighborhoods against each other. Instead, the rules should be clear and strong to protect all of us, particularly disproportionately impacted communities, and not in CI communities where very little or zero drilling has occurred in the past 5 years. When we write rules that reach into the margins to protect the most vulnerable and extend those protections beyond their borders, that is holding true to the mandate to prioritize health and safety. I also want to offer my support for other things you will hear from others regarding the importance of setbacks and other things. And I would just really appreciate being able to speak this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us this evening and for presenting to us. The next person that has signed up that is in the room is Sarah Dawn Pearlstein.
Hi, thank you very much. Yes, I'm Sarah Dawn Pearlstein, and I'm City Councilor member for Ward 1 of the City of Federal Heights, Colorado. And what I have to say today is pretty simple. I am here to encourage the Energy and Carbon Management Commission to reinstate a setback of at least 2,000 feet of the 2,000 feet requirement that was removed from its latest draft. As we do know, scientific studies have consistently linked close proximity to well pads with increased health risks. And this production happening in our environment, near our children, our animals, our food, our groundwater and surface water is incredibly dangerous. Respiratory problems, cancer, neurological disorders, and birth defects are just some of the unfortunate diseases and problems caused by oil and gas production exposure. Unfortunately, our communities have been disproportionately impacted by oil and gas operating in close proximity to our communities. DIC is real. Reinstating an at least 2,000-foot setback will help protect our children, will help protect our property values, will help toward not worsening our health and safety. And reinstating the 2,000-foot setback will help show respect for our communities who truly are disproportionately impacted. We need to make sure our communities have a voice and that their voice is heard. Community input is essential. I wanted to make sure to help bring this to your attention because I can't imagine you know the repercussions of these proximity issues. This does harmfully affect and impact everyone and everyone's children. On a personal note, I have breathing issues that started in 2017 and have greatly increased in the past couple of years. I can't tell you how much the quality of my life has been affected. I did not grow up nor spend the majority of my life in disproportionately impacted communities, but I live here now. We need your help, ECMC, to provide strong safeguards so that you can help protect your children. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us and for testifying to us this evening. Hearings Manager Thomas, do we next have Jackie Buki?
Yes, Jackie Buki is on a call. I see her phone number. So I'm going to allow her to talk. Ms. Buki, you'll just need to unmute and you should be able to speak.
While Ms. Buki's doing that, let's go ahead and keep moving. Shannon Erdman, if you'd like to unmute. There is a Shannon on the screen. Is that Ms. Erdman?
Sorry about that. That took a minute to unmute. I apologize. Thank you so
No
much.
problem.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak with you today. My name is Shannon Erdman. I'm a fourth generation Coloradan, mother of 3 girls, grandmother of 8 girls and 1 boy. My roots are deep in Colorado from my ancestors that came to Colorado and homesteaded on the Eastern Plains to my grandchildren, who are the 6th generation Coloradans. I've always wanted to live here, always will want to live here. But, you know, because we are truly blessed, we have an impressive list of state and national parks. Taking a weekend drive is always a favorite thing to do. It used to be one of the best places to start a family or to retire because the costs were good, or at least lower than the average of a big city. We can't brag about that any longer, unfortunately. I'm working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I had planned on retiring at 67. Unfortunately, that I don't think is going to be a possibility because of the rising inflation and rising costs of everything. It's worse for the youth just starting out in Colorado. My family are not alone in this predicament. Every family, whether they're starting out or retiring, are really having to question if they can afford Colorado. The average cost of a 1-bedroom apartment is well over $1,000 a month. We simply cannot afford to make everything more expensive when we don't know what the return of the investment might be. Colorado has always been very conscientious of our environment and the safety of our Colorado lifestyle. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for what you've done for Colorado. Oil and gas production has been increasingly perfected and is considered to be extremely safe. As a matter of fact, Colorado is the safest state for oil and gas production, bar none. Oil and gas production is absolutely critical to the delicate fiscal balance in our beautiful state. Oil and gas benefits Colorado's energy industry, contributes billions to our state's economy, and supports hundreds of thousands of reliable, good jobs. I'm one of those recipients. My second job is in oil and gas, and without it, I'd have to rely on public assistance. I support and urge you to support projects for the betterment of Colorado. Like all of you, I want a safe and healthy state, but we simply have to be guided by common sense and a balance of what it takes to ensure the state's longevity for generations to come. I urge you to follow the heart of true Coloradans that value conservation, the environment, and our way of life. We thank you for being so diligent with the current regulations and urge you not to create more hindrance or new regulations. I don't believe new rules will be a benefit to the health of Colorado residents. Thank you again for letting me speak with you.
Thank you. Did we get Ms. Buki to unmute?
Ms. Buki, I've been told you need to dial *6 to unmute. If you wouldn't mind giving that a try, it should help you speak.
All right, while we work on that, we're going to go to the next person that's signed up that is in the room, and that is Richard Mulhern.
Yes, I'm here.
We can hear you, Mr. Mulhern.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Richard Mulhern, and I'm 74 years old and have been married for 47 years. I live in Estes Park, Colorado. I grew up in Denver, went to Most Precious Blood Elementary School, Thomas Jefferson High School, the University of Northern Colorado. I'm against any further restrictions of gas and oil production in the state of Colorado. There are two sides to every argument. As policymakers, it's important to consider both sides. According to over 1,900 scientists around the world, according to this document, there is no climate emergency. 1,900 scientists and professionals from around the world have signed the World Climate Declaration created by the Global Climate Intelligence Group. Their message is climate science should be less political. Climate policy should be more scientific. Climate activists should openly address the uncertainties and exaggerations of their predictions of global warming. Policymakers must count the real costs and the imagined benefits of each policy. Well, here's my reality. 30 plus years ago, the government warned us to develop a plan. They said, don't assume that Social Security will sustain you. My wife and I planned for our retirement. Over the last 45 years, it consisted of 3 income sources. We purchased mineral rights from family members in Weld County. We purchased short-term rentals in Estes Park, and Social Security, which was the weakest of our plan. It took years of sacrifice to put it together, but we did it. And now it's been working for us for at least the last 10 years or so. Now, the main income producers are under attack by the state of Colorado. Oil production restrictions have affected our mineral rights income. State, county, and local short-term rental restrictions have affected our retirement income. If further restrictions are implemented, our 45-year plan will have been in vain. Our only income source will be Social Security. And what do you think of that? Which will drastically change our retirement. There's an old adage that says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In the future, would you want to have policymakers completely destroy your retirement that took a lifetime to implement? Oh, either do I. Please do not further restrict oil and gas production in Colorado. Thank you for your consideration, and I thank you for the good job you've done over the years in the oil and gas industry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mulhern, for your comments this evening. I'm not seeing Ms. Buki anymore, so we'll move on to Robin Noehl.
I'm here.
Hi, we can see you and hear you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing my comments and just to tell my story today. My name is Robin Knoll, and I have lived in Colorado since 1970. I grew up in the Littleton area, and then I moved to northern Colorado. I've raised my children, my grandchildren here, and I saw oil rigs along the road that were pumping oil when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, that's good. And then I heard as a young adult that they were trying some fracking on the western slope and that wasn't viable. It wasn't a good way to extract oil. But fast forward, in 1999, I moved to Windsor, and I moved into a real nice house in a nice neighborhood, a covenant-controlled neighborhood. But about 2 years after that, they started this oil wellhead within a half a mile of my house. And I'm thinking, oh, that's different. Okay. And then on the other side, they started one about 3/4 of a mile from my house. And I'm like, oh, that's weird that they're doing it in town. And, there were smells, there was diesel exhaust, there were VOCs. And just say that this is a new house and a new neighborhood. And then there was traffic as well. Now, fast forward to my current situation, I moved from Windsor to rural Weld County outside of Alt and built a retirement home there on old farmland. And since I've lived here in the last 10 years, there have been wellheads that have been drilled consistently around my neighborhood or, farmland. They all are within there's a mile. There's wellheads within a mile of my house. And the last one that they're putting in that's not quite into production yet is down my road on County Road 80. It's a half a mile from my house. And at this time, there are relatively no smells, very few, and it has had very little impact on our lives. It just appears like in the last 20 years that pollution has considerably decreased from these production sites. And I urge you not to take any more action, more unnecessary actions to the Colorado oil and gas industry, and allow the current rules and regulations time to work. I appreciate the ECMC and this study and the great work that you've been doing. And I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Thank you for being with us this evening. We do appreciate it. Next, we'll hear from Mike Edwards.
Hello, my name is Mike Edwards, and I retired and moved to Colorado about 18 years ago to be near my son and daughter. We live in the new District 8 in Weld County. About 15 years ago, my son decided to open a small restaurant in Johnstown, Colorado. That's where we live. I worked with him for over a year during construction to get it started. The restaurant business works on small margins, and I've seen the negative effects of government's mandated large minimum wage increases over the last 12 years. We hired mostly moms and teenagers who are part-time workers. It has been difficult just to survive. Rising costs have hurt our business. As an example, since January 23, we had mandated increases of minimum wage of $1.09 per hour to $13.65 per hour. This is an untrained employee. In 2024, it increased to $14.42 an hour. Also in January of 23, it was mandated that Colorado Family Medical Insurance, and that added 0.45%. That's for the employee and for the business. Now, I had to sit down and figure out how we are to comply with the new regulations and to track volumes and fees and to be reported to government agencies. As a result of these wage increases and more regulations, we end up deciding to sell the business, and my son has gone into another line of work. Additional regulations on oil and gas industry in Colorado will end up increasing cost for everyone, especially small businesses, without benefiting air quality. I think it would be wise to let the existing regulations have their full effect before adding more regulations. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Appreciate you being with us and good to hear from you. We're now going to go back up the list. Trevor Ash is now with us.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm here.
We can see you and hear you. Go for it.
Perfect. Good evening. My name is Trevor Ashe. I am 29 years old and currently live in Eaton, Colorado. I was born and raised in Eaton, and a majority of my family still lives in the state. Recently, I got out of the U.S. Navy after serving for 6 years, and I'm currently using my GI Bill to complete college. I left Colorado for the Navy in 2018, and when I would come back home to visit family on leave, I noticed a lot of haze along the Front Range, which I hadn't noticed before. My brother pointed it out to me one afternoon while driving up and down 25, but I couldn't believe what I saw back in the day. The air quality had truly gotten bad along the Front Range, like in a way that I've never seen before. After completing my time in the Navy and moving back to Colorado, I was expecting the worst haze I could imagine, but was pleasantly surprised to see that the air quality had dramatically improved since I had left. Having grown up here, we have a tradition and a duty to take care of the land that we live on, and taking care of the environment is a Colorado tradition. As a college student, I do not have the most time in the world to work 24/7, and things are expensive. My electric bill in the summer, my gas bill in the winter, and my food expenses are skyrocketing so much that I might end up moving out of the country to finish school so I can maintain a standard of living. It is vital that we balance resource extraction and protecting the environment. I would like to thank the ECMC for taking their due diligence to determine the impact of oil and gas operations across the different communities in Colorado. And without state intervention, our area would be in worse shape. I hope that the ECMC continues to practice due diligence, and I'm thankful to know that a major Colorado industry is not more dangerous than any others. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashe, for being with us this evening. We now will hear from Beth Ann Parker. Hi there, Ms. Parker. If you could unmute.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Beth Ann Parker. I'm glad to talk on here. I was born and raised in Colorado for 66 years. I love Colorado. When I worked, I was a certified nursing assistant where I did work with mentally and physically challenged adults, which I love doing. My husband, and his aging mom, who lives with us, have asthma. We enjoy the clean air in Colorado, except when there's a fire close by, of course. So thank you for conducting this study. I feel that adding new regulations are not going to benefit Colorado because I feel like the air is great in Colorado right now. Thanks for letting me give you my story.
Well, thank you for being with us. We appreciate you being with us this evening.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now hear from David John Austin.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm David Austin. I live in Windsor, Colorado. Basically I've been here for a long while since my family moved here from 91 to 92. Back then, the oil business was booming. Prices were low. Rent was cheap. Jobs was everywhere. And then certain regulations, down the line, people started passing regulations. They started passing, Clean Air Act and a whole bunch of other stuff, which, I'm all for, you know, clean air, clean water, but I also realize that, you know, without vehicles and doing logistics, which I'm my work into, if I don't make my routes and everything by car, I don't get paid. The company doesn't pay my gas or anything. I pay that all out of pocket after I get paid for my jobs. I work 2 logistics jobs and everything. And when they passed a certain regulation, I saw, you know, wells from Larimer County, Boulder County, and all along the Front Range. And all of a sudden, there was less oil wells in certain counties. Oil workers were being shipped off to other state. Other companies folded and left here. And, you know, what we have to learn is that basically we don't need to hurt everything industry here. There should be a co-op of, you know, what we need from our resources and manage them properly. I'm an avid fisherman. I like to go do wildlife stuff as well, you know, camping, or just go to a camping spot and cook on the grill once in a while and chill out, basically. But still, we need to preserve our resources, our air and water and stuff, but we also don't need to hurt our companies that puts food on the table, keeps families in houses, and so on. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Austin, for being with us this evening. I believe we now will hear from Valley Smith, who I think ends in 224 on the phone number.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Terrific, thank you. My name is Valley Smith. I've been a resident of Colorado for the last 40 years. And I used to work in the oil and gas industry for approximately 13 years, from 2008 onward. And I worked both as a landman and also I sold tanks and high-low separators to the industry for a small period of time. In 2000, the market dropped, but from 2017 onward, sadly, I saw regulations being more punitive in the development of oil and gas in our state, as opposed to being regulatory for the benefit of every citizen and helping the environment. And since then, I've seen oil and gas industries move away from the state, and it's not actually like watching all of these regulations getting passed. On one hand, it's been good that we actually now see the data of the impact of oil and gas. However, at what cost has it costing Colorado, like as far as ad valorem tax per county, and to all the jobs that are lost? I'm currently not in the oil and gas industry anymore because there's just no jobs in there. And however, I do see that oil and gas is vital to everybody's way of life. Like without it, we don't have heat, we don't have air conditioning, we don't have cars, we don't have plastics. And I do appreciate what the ECMC has done is in terms of wanting to improve the environment. However, I think that passing further regulations is only going to continue to prohibit businesses that want to act responsibly from actually engaging here in Colorado. And with that, I just ask that we just stop for a minute and allow some of these things to work themselves out, and maybe encourage more industry to come back to Colorado, that in knowing that they have to respond in a way that is conducive to not only the surrounding areas, but all of Colorado, and also like being able to uphold the standards that you guys have set. And in knowing that it's not going to change so much, they might come back. I think the energy is vital to not only Colorado, but to our nation. And again, I do appreciate what you guys have done and the reasoning behind it. I just hope that we can slow down just a bit and see how these things work out on a long-term basis. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us this evening. We now will hear from Charlene Ackerley.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sherilyn Akerley, and I've been a Colorado resident since 1972 and a homeowner since 1992. We love the state, the people, and of course the mountains. And I have 9.5 acres of land in the foothills and 3 horses. But we use a lot of fuel to power our tractors and equipment to maintain and upkeep our property. So this has become increasingly more expensive for not just myself and family, but for everyone in my community as well. Living here so long, I do remember a brown cloud over Denver in the 70s. So I do appreciate you guys, the ECMC, working to keep our mountains clean and our state beautiful. I also appreciate the long study you've undertaken to protect my family and keep our state clean from all the effects of oil and gas. I'm excited about the new study as it shows that what we've been doing is working. We've been told for years now to trust the science, so now it's time to trust the science and celebrate the great news. As it is, I've seen the cost increase everywhere, and we have to go further from our home just to get cheaper fuel. Activities such as going to the mountains or to see my friends in Fort Lupton or especially Pueblo have become increasingly more expensive. I can't even afford to go as often as I would like to Pueblo. More burdensome regulations on oil and gas is becoming harmful to the quality of life for Coloradoans and how they live their lives. I want to continue to see advancements in the industry that continue to further make our environment cleaner, and we have to have a functioning industry to do that. Therefore, I encourage you to continue protecting Colorado by not placing burdensome regulations on oil and gas. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerley, for your time. We appreciate you being with us. We now will hear from Ruth Hund.
Hello. My name is Ruth Hund. I'm a retired teacher and current substitute teacher. Thank you for your time. I want to talk to you about this rule from a slightly different perspective, and I apologize. I thought I had started my video. Let me get that going. I want to talk to you from a moral perspective. I know that oil and gas executives are really good people. I've taught their children. They do what they can to ensure their children are safe, healthy, and thrive. I want the same thing for my son, just at a different scale. They fly in private jets, have multiple homes, and their primary estates are so large they need gardeners to maintain the property. I don't begrudge their enormous wealth up to the point that it is not gained by harming someone else. There's a lot of talk about jobs whenever a bill or regulation threatens to curb the drilling of wells. The oil and gas industry frequently advertises that in Colorado they are responsible for over 300,000 jobs. This is a huge exaggeration. I've read the American Petroleum Institute report. 300,000 includes direct, indirect, and induced jobs. You know, the teachers and store clerks that are hired because populations are larger due to the 300,000 jobs. Circular logic, really. A 2023 Colorado Fiscal Institute study estimates that oil and gas drilling supports closer to 20,500 jobs. I question the sincerity of the oil and gas executives' concern about jobs when I read another industry report that encouraged executives to automate to decrease the workforce. I don't blame any industry for saving money, but I object to the hypocrisy and testimony that holds up jobs when faced with regulations that protect public health. The oil and gas executives benefit from the cost cutting and lax regulations, not the workers. Who pays for their profits? I do every time I have to use my inhaler on high ozone days. Others pay for it when their kids get bloody noses or a family member gets leukemia from the cumulative impacts of being poor, not their fault, and exposed to multiple pollutants in the air and water. If a well is drilled within 2,000 feet of a property, the value of that property will decline. Who pays for that? Becoming wealthy at the expense of the health, welfare, and wealth of others without the permission is theft. I urge you to stop this thievery by encouraging community voices in permitting and creating rules that reflect community concerns. I encourage you to make no exception to the 2,000-foot rule. Thank you for your time and consideration of my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Hond. We appreciate you being with us. I believe we're now going to call upon Linda Hay, who I think is Linda Kyle.
Unmute. There we go. And then
There you
start
go.
video. Am I in there though?
Yep, we
Can you hear
see
me?
and hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
wonderful. Thank you so much. I really want to thank you all for all the work that you've done, especially in the last the 2-year study that you did that showed it was under 5% of the pollution that oil and gas actually contributes to our pollution in the state. I'm an environmental science major from CU and a math minor, and I have over 30 years experience in oil and gas. I live in a mid to lower middle class. I am not one of those that has a gardener or anything like that. I have a husband that struggles to mow our little tiny lawn. What I do want to say is that I appreciate the honesty and the integrity of your tests that you've gone through. And as an environmental person, you've no idea how much that really meant to me. I do know that the majority of the pollution in our state actually comes from California, that is the most polluted state in the nation. And they actually have the highest amount of electric cars, but it doesn't seem to matter unless we can actually talk to God and have him reverse the polarity of our earth. We're going to get that pollution because of the direction of the polarity and the jet stream. And we are one of the first states that acquires their air. I do want you to consider not doing any further regulations on oil and gas. I know that I, for one, as an environmentalist, was very proud of the work that I did for oil and gas and the work that the company that I worked for did for environment. They spent over $2 million per lease to make sure that the land was better than when they started drilling. So I do know that there are companies out there that actually take that into consideration. The majority, actually, of oil and gas companies take that into consideration and are required by regulations to do so. And it's very important to them and to the employees, such as me. I'm no longer an employee right now. I'm only on a fixed income. My husband was laid off a couple weeks ago. So I have 2 children that are adults.
If you could wrap
I'm
up, please.
sorry. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to
No
go
problem.
past my time at all. Thank
No.
you for
Thank you for being with us.
allowing me to speak. Thank you
Very
so
good.
much for hearing. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. All right. We now would recognize John Lowe.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I want to let you know that my wife is also supposed to talk tonight, and I think was supposed to be right ahead of me or right behind me. We had a thing on our screen to say, you want to be an attendee or do you want to participate? The first answer we said attendee, and thought, well, maybe we should do participate. So if it's all right, I would like you to be able to talk to her as soon as I'm finished. Would that
That's
be all-
perfectly fine. Yep, and you both get 3 minutes.
Great. Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you concerning the issues of energy production and clean air in Colorado. I do appreciate your effort to find a balance between keeping private industry in line with common sense regulations and keeping all Colorado citizens healthy. I'm a native Coloradoan, 75, retired, living on a fixed income, former military, Vietnam era. So you know I have a lot of experience that I know are excited that I'm going to get to share with you tonight. We have lived in the west end of Morgan County for 40 plus years after we were in the service. When we moved out here in the early 1980s, the brown cloud followed us out along the Platte River. After not too long, though, we no longer saw it. It disappeared. I believe that happened because of the cooperation between government and private industry. Both wanted clean air. We have been all electric at our home for 40 years. We even have a hot water solar to heat our house along with electric baseboard heat. All of our appliances are electric. Our electric bill in winter is over $400 a month. When we take our trash to the county landfill, half of the volume that we have is recyclables. So from my perspective, we are doing all the right things to be good stewards of the land and the air. We have family from Denver to Nebraska border. It has been strongly suggested we purchase an EV so we can make the life better for those along the Front Range. And I understand why. After all, they are helping us by installing acres of beautiful solar panels and wind generators all around us to save money on their electric bills. This year, our auto insurance increased almost 30%. I asked our agent why, and he said, to be honest, John, it's due to the extremely high costs for EV repairs. Financially, we are helping two daughters that are single parents. In addition to paying our own bills, inflation is taking its toll on all of us. I get it. The impact of inflation is hurting everyone in Colorado, no matter what their economic status is. So I'm asking you, in your role as a regulation committee of the gas and oil industry, that you do it the same approach that got rid of the brown cloud in the spirit of cooperation. And please do it without intimidation. Regulation, cooperation, no intimidation. If you can do these three things, there will be a win-win-win for all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we now would like to hear from Peggy Lowe.
Okay. Hi, my name is Peggy Lowe, and I'm a Colorado native who grew up in the Westminster area. I have lived in Colorado, except during the time when my husband was in the Air Force. We lived in Texas and Germany. As a family, we enjoy many outdoor activities, especially golf and horseback riding. I'm a retired teacher and also a business owner of a small horse operation where we breed and train ponies. Our hay, fuel, and feed has doubled our costs. Even though I'm 77 and retired, I'm still substituting in schools to supplement our income, as we would not be able to pay our bills without this extra income. We live on a fixed income and belong to one of the lower economic groups. I'm sure you're well aware of the rising costs of gas, which in turn causes rising prices with groceries and other essentials. As a small business owner, it's very difficult to keep not only our business going, but also our independence without my part-time job. We are also very concerned about our 7 grandchildren who may not be able to afford to live in Colorado due to the rising costs. I'm part of a mission committee at church, and folks, not just us, are struggling to make ends meet. Our church provides a food bank, which is so vital to many in our community, and the need is growing. As volunteers have to take part-time or full-time jobs, it's hard to find volunteers to help out. We care about our beautiful state. We have solar panels. We recycle all we can and are in charge of aluminum recycling project at our church. Try hard to be good caretakers of the land. We've even tried electric lawnmowers, but can't finish the lawn before we have to recharge. Our oil and gas industry provides so much. One example is the building grants, and our local school was able to build a new school with that grant. They provide clean, more affordable, and reliable energy, and we are very concerned about putting more regulations on oil and gas, as we know that will lead to higher costs. We are at survival mode right now. Thank you for your time and effort. We appreciate all you've done to make our air cleaner.
Great. Thank you both very much for being with us this evening. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. I believe we now, Mr. Dewey, Morgan Dewey. Oh, Morgan. Hi. Sorry about that.
No worries. Can you hear me?
Yep. And we can see you.
Perfect. All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Morgan Dewey, and I am a Colorado native. As a third-year medical student, I would like to express my concerns about the cumulative impacts of the oil and gas pollution on our population. Researchers have demonstrated low birth weight and poor birth outcomes, asthma, other respiratory illnesses, heart problems, and childhood leukemia in communities living near fracking sites. Several studies have even found an increase in all-cause mortality. Additionally, some studies have predicted long-term impacts on the fertility of people exposed to unconventional oil and gas chemicals associated with these operations. There's also concern that oil and gas activities predispose local children to devastating chronic neurological diseases as the chemicals used disrupt crucial development. A recent study found 2 to 3 times higher radioactivity in the Commerce City neighborhoods around Colorado's largest oil refinery. The residents of Commerce City are at significant risk for respiratory damage and the destruction of their blood cells. This happens just miles from the Colorado Capitol building. The burden of pollution from oil and gas activities falls primarily on low-income individuals and those who identify as racial minorities. Many of my patients come from these communities. They already struggle with access to healthcare and an unfair burden of chronic diseases. The research is clear that allowing oil and gas industries to operate on the status quo in and around these communities will continue to impact their most vulnerable members, often children, for decades to come. As a future physician, I am very concerned that these rules, as drafted, do not go far enough to ensure meaningful protections for Colorado's disproportionately impacted communities. From a health perspective, Coloradans would benefit from stronger protections than a 2,000-foot setback in DICs and a swifter onboarding of community liaisons to improve public participation. This rulemaking lends a critical opportunity to strengthen protections for Colorado communities burdened by the cumulative impacts of oil and gas operations on both our public health and environment. I urge the Commission to place their value in the lives and health of everyday Coloradans and the future of our state's children. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us and participating. Next, we will hear from David and Janet Jewell.
I'm getting on here. Hi. I'm Janet Jewell. I'm thankful for the opportunity for public comment at this meeting. I'm a longtime resident of Colorado and through the years have enjoyed all the time spent being outdoors, utilizing our public parks and open spaces. I'm also a retired public school teacher and grandmother. It's important that we give our students the best quality of education with excellent teachers and strong school districts. As a former teacher, I know more than most how important it is for our schools to be fully funded, especially in disproportionately impacted communities. Because of the work the ECMC has done, we have better air quality for our students. Now we need to make sure schools are receiving the funding they need to provide that quality education for all students. I care deeply about our environment and I know that this commission is charged with regulatory authority of the oil and gas industry, along with protecting health in the public health, the environment, and our wildlife. ECMC, along with our state government, have placed the strictest regulations on the oil and gas industry. We now have improved air quality. We all know that the oil and gas industry is the main driver of our economy in this state. The tax revenue the state collects from this industry, which is over $1 billion in the past years, has provided funds to pay for our parks, open spaces, and our school districts. We know that the oil and gas companies work hard to find new technologies and ways to protect our environment and the air quality, and to be in compliance with regulations that have been placed on them by commissions such as yours and our state legislature. We need these companies to stay in our state, as they do provide good jobs for hardworking citizens, plus the tax revenue they provide, which fund the items that I've mentioned. We know the air quality has been taken care of, but our focus should now be on helping economically struggling families thrive in Colorado. It is unfair to place an economic burden on families and communities that are already struggling. By placing increased regulations on some communities, you hurt the family's ability to thrive. I thank the ECMC tonight for studying that cumulative impact statement and for all the ways that you work together with the oil and gas industry to help our state provide the quality of life we as citizens enjoy in Colorado.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Thanks. Mr. Jewell, you're next.
Okay, my name is David Jewell, and I thank the Commission for allowing citizens to comment on issues and decisions that affect them. I've lived in Colorado for over 60 years, where I own my own business, raised 3 children who attended public schools, and I'm a proud taxpayer to support the infrastructure from which my family, neighbors, and all citizens have benefited. My wife and I are now retired, and with children and grandchildren in Colorado, we plan to enjoy the lifestyle of this state to support both government and private business with our taxes and disposable income. We are deeply concerned about what we see of the rising cost of living here and decisions which this commission makes, along with what our legislature and local governments will mandate. It'll just make it more expensive on fixed income citizens. I would like to share what I learned as a parent and businessman. It takes a team to be successful. If any of the parts get too lopsided, the effort will fail. Let's use a stool as an example. A one-legged stool doesn't work. A two-legged one is difficult, but a three-legged one is stable. In this case, there are 3 components: the public or the consumer, the industry, energy, oil and gas, and the rulemaking, which is the ECMC. There must be a balance, or the whole effort will not satisfy the consumer. We are seeing the effects of these 3 missing a harmony through the prices we see. Colorado is an energy-rich state, and when these resources are combined, we will be successful in all phases of our economy. The consumer, industry, and the ECMC will have the support it needs to fulfill its mission. I understand the work that has gone on into the ECMC, working to maintain a healthy environment for all our citizens. But we must ensure the concerns of our air quality is balanced with the concerns of our economy, especially in disproportionately impacted communities. The ECMC has done their job on the air quality side, but to keep balance, it is time to focus on finding ways to make our state affordable again. The ECMC has the power to help a lot of economically struggling communities
and our state as a whole. I urge you to use the power for good and not to tack on more regulations to the oil and gas industry. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Appreciate you and your wife being with us this evening. We now will recognize Elliot Barton.
Hello, how are you tonight? My name is Elliot Barton, and I am a founder and CEO of Clean Hydrogen Fueling Infrastructure Developer for heavy trucks, a veteran and a Colorado native of 67 years. I have over 45 years of professional experience in many business capacities, particularly in energy, oil and gas, and clean fuels. My concerns are intended to speak to the following: support of strong common sense preservation and improvement of air and water quality standards while addressing real-time economic stability concerns. As we rapidly evolve into a clean, green economy, we must constantly be conscious of the importance of and the continued significance of technology advancements in oil and gas exploration, safety, and air quality technologies. Over-regulation will destroy the oil and gas industry and the economy in Colorado, and we will become reliant on far less clean hydrocarbon products that will be far more expensive. From my professional experience, it is clearly evident that clean energy technologies have become developed to the point of mainstream, fiscally responsible, and become integrated into the grid. This, I believe, will have significant traction in 10 to 15 years from now, but not today. I might also note that Colorado has the cleanest regulatory requirements for oil and gas in the country. I know that we all share equal concerns and considerations for the environment and economic needs of the citizens of Colorado. I am seeking common sense thought processes, logical solutions, and a key to a successful transformation into clean energy. Thank you so much for your time and interest in my concerns.
Thank you for presenting this evening for us. We now will hear from Omar Iriglu.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Omar Iriglu, and I'm a small business owner from a disproportionately impacted community in Thornton, Colorado. First, I would like to thank the Commission for giving me the opportunity to speak today and commend you for the objective decision to do a study and apply the facts found. When I first moved to Colorado 22 years ago, I loved the open space, the nature preservation, and immediately noticed how clean the air was compared to New York. Seeing rigs in the fields didn't give me an impression of a problem. It was the symbol of the American way. Environment is important to all of us, and we all want clean air. Just like everything else in life, we have to find a balance in how we use and manage our energy sources efficiently, economically, smart, and of course, as clean as possible. We must understand that there is no complete removal of fossil fuels from our lives. We need it for the most basic necessities. Producing our own energy as much as possible gives us energy security nationally and immunity from the world's energy-related problems. On the local level, the industry provides many thousands of well-paying jobs, billions of dollars in tax revenues, source of finance for many programs, and a much better quality of life for all citizens. We need and must clear the way for the energy industry to thrive in Colorado. We already do it better than anywhere else in the world. As much as I live in a DIC community, if all the so-called effects were real, which I don't think it's real, I think it's a purposely miscalculated exaggeration of the effects of the industry. If it was real, I think there would be absolutely no life in a place like, say, Dubai. But I think we need to have a sensible regulation policy. That's all I have to say today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it. We now will hear from Jamie Geeson.
Hi, good evening, commissioners and others. My name is Jamie Geeson, and I've been a Colorado resident my entire life. So thank you for this opportunity to speak about the following topics that are important to me. The current notification requirements only contacts people within 2,000 feet of a well. The average person can walk that in 8 minutes, and you can drive it in 40 seconds. Everyone here knows that what happens at a well goes beyond 2,000 feet, whether it's the construction building that well, the noise and lights of the well after it's built, and certainly the pollution of the well once it's built. So at the very least, a larger group of people need to be notified of what is happening in their neighborhoods or what is being proposed to happen in their neighborhoods. And all the people within the impacted area or a 1 mile radius, whichever is larger, should be notified. And if it is a disproportionately impacted community, as was originally defined in the June report, not the August report, then the entire community should be notified. And to get a true understanding of how we, the community, are being affected by wells, impacts should be reviewed as cumulative impacts, not on a well-by-well basis. To use a metaphor, if you were trying to reduce your carb intake, for example, you wouldn't start recounting after each meal. You add up at the end of the day how many carbs you've had. It's the same here. It really doesn't give us an idea of what's reality and what's affecting us in our health if we are not counting the cumulative impacts. It's a false number. So there are people on this call who don't believe that oil and gas is causing as much harm as some of us are claiming. And I say that that's fine. Let's take a look. Let's do the report. Let's do the report correctly. Let's count the right numbers. We don't have to have, a debate. We can look at the numbers. We can count cumulative impacts. We can all sit down as a large community, everybody who's impacted in the full impacted area, and have a discussion and decide. We don't have to debate it. And as far as how much the oil and gas gives the economy of the United States, or not the United States, or the United States, Colorado specifically, the Colorado Fiscal Institute did a wonderful report about just how much it supports the economy of the state. And I encourage the commissioners to relook at that report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it. Next up is Francis Jackson.
Hello, my name is Francis Jackson. I'm a Colorado resident, a retired airline pilot, and a former naval aviator. While living here, several oil wells have been completed from a half mile to a mile from my residence with negligible adverse effects. This is no doubt due to the work efforts of the ECMC. As a retiree, I enjoy recreation in this beautiful state, and like you, love and appreciate the unspoiled beauty of the Colorado outdoors. During my career as an airline pilot, I learned firsthand that the biggest factor in the price of airline tickets was fuel costs. That's something that doesn't really affect the super wealthy, but it directly impacts the flying public. High travel costs can be devastating to a family on a modest budget that needs to visit a sick family member and make vacations out of reach for many. What I want is clean, environmentally friendly, affordable, and abundant energy. I also believe we should ensure that government policies don't place undue restrictions on the production of oil and gas energy supplies. Airline ticket prices are just one example. The cost of energy affects the cost of pretty much everything, from the cost of necessities like food and clothes to the price of high-tech devices like computers and cell phones. We've already seen the effects of inflation over the last few years. As a retiree, the value of my retirement plan has been slashed substantially. I can still get by, but low-income households have been disproportionately affected. To sum up, ideology and emotions need to be kept out of energy policy, and we need to avoid adding unnecessary regulations, which would result in fewer jobs and less prosperity. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for being with us. We appreciate it. We now will hear from William Hembry. I'm assuming that's Bill.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is William Hembry. I'm a retired software engineer, and I've lived in Colorado for over 2 decades now. I'm also an Air Force Intelligence Command veteran who now lives north of Lyons. I love the natural beauty of Colorado and am privileged to see eagles soaring past my home frequently. I can see Chimney Hollow Reservoir Project from my house. I believe that all reasonable people can see the many economic benefits from this project. The Colorado oil and gas industry produces far more economic benefits than Chimney Hollow. My late father was a petroleum engineer, so I grew up in 7 oil-producing communities in 4 states, plus Canada and Venezuela. I know that oil and gas production means good production jobs and numerous secondary jobs, from oil field services to retail businesses of all kinds. Disparate impact communities are classified as such in part due to low income. So oil and gas production actually mitigates disparate economic impacts. The designated disparate impact areas in Colorado contain only 1/3 of 1% of Colorado's 2020 population. And I am informed that a commission study has shown that oil and gas production does not have a differential impact on disparate impact communities. I applaud the commission for following the science. And I ask the commission to carefully consider disparate economic impacts in all of your rulemaking. And that's everything I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hembry. We appreciate you being with us and testifying. We now will hear from Lori Anderson.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Lori Anderson, and I'm a Colorado field organizer with Moms Clean Air Force, a community of over 1.5 million moms and dads united against air pollution, including the urgent crisis of our changing climate to protect our children's health. For years, residents like myself who have been adversely impacted by oil and gas operations have been advocating for the prioritization of public health, safety, and the environment above oil and gas operations. In 2019, the Colorado legislature delivered on these protections, including the requirement to develop rules that evaluate and address the cumulative impacts of oil and gas development, and subsequently followed up with additional legislative requirements. I appreciate the remarks from multiple state legislators, including indicating that the legislative intent was clear with requirements to protect DI communities, address adverse cumulative impacts, and promulgate rules to advance the state's pollution reduction goals. I live about a half mile from the 18-well Livingston site and speak from lived experience. Several years ago, as oil and gas operations collided with well-established communities in Broomfield and neighboring unincorporated Adams County, we felt like guinea pigs. Based on the available health and scientific studies, we raised concerns about the health, safety, and environmental harms that we anticipated as technological advances made large-scale drilling and fracking next to and under our communities a reality. Despite our protests, 84 wells were approved in Broomfield and residential fracking began. Over the years of pre-production and production activities, my community was the subject of health studies, while advanced air quality monitoring data was collected and noise studies were undertaken. A recent cumulative human health risk assessment led by the Environmental Defense Fund confirmed what residents like myself already suspected, that even with the best-in-class BMPs implemented in Broomfield, acute health risks within the community remain above EPA thresholds. The findings from this risk assessment also mirror the results from a 2023 epidemiological study conducted by Weisner et al. In my community. These risks are likely even higher for residents living near multiple oil and gas sites when the risks are aggregated. Before any enhanced systems and practices are purported to reduce impacts to communities, and before operators are allowed to include blanket statements such as, with these BMPs, the risks are expected to be near negligible, the cumulative impacts must first be qualitatively analyzed by an independent third party to ensure they are actually effective. For example, a recent study by Q et al. 2024 found that the use of synthetic-based drilling fluid released more heavy alkanes than petroleum-based fluid, which can contribute to greater ozone formation, which in itself will cause greater respiratory health impacts. However, synthetic drilling fluid is widely accepted as a BMP, but this may not be protective of human health, especially during the summer ozone season. More research is needed to understand emissions reductions of BMPs before such practices are widely accepted as solutions. We cannot undo the impacts to my community, which included neurological impacts, eye irritation, nosebleeds, increased asthma, and the yet to be seen long-term impacts, but we can't prevent these adverse outcomes going forward. And I see my time is up, so I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We appreciate you being with us. It's always good to hear from you. We now will hear from, actually, I've got two more signed up that are on that we've identified. I'm just kind of last call. If you signed up and we're planning on testifying tonight and we've not called on you, please raise your hand and then hearings manager Thomas will be able to identify you. With that, the last two that we have signed up that we've identified is first Mark Waltermeyer.
Hi, my name is Mark Waltermeyer. I'm a farmer in the North Fork of the Gunnison Valley and represent the Valley Organic Growers Association, VOGA, a membership organization with about 125 farmer members in the North Fork Valley. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today and the work you are putting in to create rules that will profoundly affect many of us. Thank you. We in Western Colorado face different realities in the urban and suburban areas of the Front Range, and our concerns are vastly different than the rural areas of Eastern Colorado. We ask you to include our needs in the cumulative impact rules and modify your draft to address our concerns. Our primary concern is the limiting of impacts to a 1 mile radius. This approach may seem reasonable in a flat rural expanse, but it doesn't make sense here. And it doesn't protect us from the impacts of upstream oil and gas activities. It doesn't reflect the reality of our geography and our economy. We live and farm downstream of present and proposed oil and gas activities. The sites are somewhat remote, but sit in the rugged terrain that feeds into our water supply. Incidents at these sites threaten our water and our livelihoods, both directly and reputationally. In a matter of hours, water from a significant spill will be on my fields without my knowing about it and without my ability to mitigate the damage. Nearly all VOGA members are in the same position, with their irrigation water coming from sources fed by current or proposed oil and gas activity. A small spill will still profoundly affect our ability to market our produce. This valley's reputation for clean food will be destroyed by reports of our irrigation water containing oil and gas contamination, even if it doesn't directly affect fields. A 1 mile radius makes no sense in this context. Likewise, a 1 mile radius for impacts makes no sense when we're faced with the prospect of significant truck traffic up the access highway to the development areas. This 2-lane winding and accident-prone highway follows the river up the valley right by my land, alongside my ditch, and serves as the only thoroughfare for the schools and hospital for our communities. This traffic poses a significant impact that will alter the nature of our communities with increased exhaust, increased noise, and a significant increase in the likelihood of accidents and spills. A 1 mile radius is again pointless in addressing this impact. Furthermore, cumulative impacts rules must meaningfully address climate change. I have noticed significant changes in my ability to grow food over the past 20 years. We've warmed up winter and summer, and significant weather events are more common and damaging. We need to address the human causes of climate change, especially the burning of fossil fuels, and limit the damage to livelihoods that depend on somewhat predictably stable weather to survive. Cumulative impacts rules must reflect this reality. I and the growers VOGA represents ask for cumulative impact rules that recognize the impacts we are experiencing and will experience if oil and gas development occurs above us. We ask for our geography and how it brings the risks of oil and gas development to our farms and homes recognized in the rules, and we ask that you protect our local agriculture-based economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waltermeyer. It's always good to hear from you. We now will hear from Jan Bramble.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Jan Bramble. I'm a Colorado native. I apologize for being redundant. I'm old enough to remember Denver's worst brown cloud that followed the Platte River south past Inglewood and Littleton. Gates Rubber Company could be smelled throughout the entire metro area, mingling with the ripe aroma of the feedlots in Denver and the odor from Greeley. We all had incinerators to burn our trash. My first car got about 5 miles to the gallon with no emission testing at the time. And all of this is behind us now due to EPA standards and efforts like you're doing with testing. What EPA cannot change is where Denver sits, being close to the mountains or the wildfire smoke that comes from other states drifting into Colorado, affecting air pollution testing. Colorado has the strictest regulations on oil and gas drilling across our entire country. Car emissions have improved year after year due to new technology. But let's face it, many environmentalists are not going to be happy until they push all oil and gas from Colorado and America. Just because the new Green Deal made it into the Inflation Reduction Act that picked a date ending gas dependency does not mean we can all afford it or by any means be ready for it. We all cannot afford new electric cars and furnaces and electrical panels to handle the load or electrical fireplaces. Just this past year, we sat in on meetings where they wanted to eliminate gas mowers and everyone had to have electric mowers, electric blowers, and weed eaters. I can't imagine what that's going to do to the price of lawn care for people like myself who's too old to huff and puff our lawn to be done. Electrical transformers across Colorado are not updated to handle the burden of an all-electric world. We all depend on plastics that are used in our clothing and what we purchase. Lithium is a whole new nightmare I can't even go into tonight. And I'm just asking you to not consider introducing any more restrictions or regulations on us personally or on oil and gas drilling or other companies. Let things settle for now. Let time pass until further testing can be completed with already implemented strict regulations that are now in place. Arapahoe County just recently implemented new regulations regarding setbacks and oil drilling. Consider the smoke that infiltrates our air that has nothing to do with regulations and restrictions. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate that you moved me up from tomorrow. And I have to applaud you. You're kind, you're considerate, and thank God you weren't like me, who one of my first 4-hour mandatory meetings and classes, I totally fell asleep in front of an entire Zoom group of about 100 people. So you've done a great job, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for participating with us, Ms. Bramble, this evening. We appreciate it. We now will hear from Elizabeth Smith.
It's on now. Good job, dear. The last was
right.
It's okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, and we can see you.
Great, thank you. Again, my name is Elizabeth Smith. I live in Wheat Ridge. Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to speak this evening. I have asthma. I've lived here for 40 years. I love living in Colorado. But frankly, the air quality here is lousy for my health. And my experience of living along the Front Range is that we have a severe air quality problem here. I know that we are in the severe non-attainment, can't say that tonight, category for ozone, and ozone is really, really rough on my asthma. So that's my personal story. The purpose of rulemaking is to implement laws that are passed by the General Assembly. I think that's the clear thing. Whether anyone agrees with the provisions of the laws that have been passed or not is really irrelevant when crafting rules pursuant to the law. The current draft of the rule does not comply with either the intent or the clear language of the law as we have it. Again, whether we like it or not is irrelevant. It's been passed. So now we're charged with doing rules. In particular, I'm concerned about using a term other than disproportionately impacted communities in the rulemaking. I think this confuses matters. And again, the statute has used clear language, has clear definitions, and they need to be used in the rules. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We appreciate you being with us this evening and taking time out of your evening.
Yeah.
All right, next, I see there's 299504 iPhone, and you're visualized. Can you identify yourself?
If you're talking to me, my name is Gina Hennigan.
And Ms. Hennigan, did you sign up?
I did.
Okay, great. Then look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. Well, after hearing from so many other people who have really valid concerns. I am going to kind of attack this from a different angle. Anyway, I moved to Colorado when I was 7 years old, and my parents started with a small business, and they went through years, my entire growing up period, I lived with small business concerns. And so my big thing at this point is that we can't afford to eliminate small business as a commodity in Colorado. We need to be cognizant of what people can afford, how the rules and regulations are going to affect both the people who do have significant incomes and those who are on fixed incomes. One of the things that we are concerned about in Colorado is, just like normal people, the state of Colorado has to be concerned about meeting its budget. And when you talk about the oil and gas industry, the benefits of the oil and gas industry being in Colorado, the income that workers earn and the good pay that they receive, things that other people have already mentioned. We want to do our research. We want to see to it that everything's covered. But it's almost impossible to make things work for every single person in the state of Colorado. I really feel for the people who are ill, who have had difficulties that they attribute to the oil and gas industry. At the same time, the oil and gas industry really does do a lot for the state of Colorado. So when we're talking about taxes, tax income for the state of Colorado is huge relative to oil and gas production. I have done a bunch of reading, and what I was concerned about was what the ECMC has done and what their role is. And
Ms.
it appears
Hennigan,
yes.
If you could wrap up, your time is
Yes.
over. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay. It appears that the ECMC regulations have cleaned up the Colorado air so well that there is little or no impact on the quality relative to oil and gas production. And that's considering that 4% of the total U.S. production of oil comes from Colorado ground. I thank the ECMC for what they have done in cleaning up the air. And because they've done such a good job to date, I would like to say, at this point, it looks good. And if it's not broke, don't try to fix it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Finnegan. We appreciate you taking time out of your evening and testifying.
Thank you.
I next will recognize iPad. And if iPad could unmute themselves and identify themselves, we'll make sure that we hear from them. Hi. We can see you.
Hello?
You still need to unmute.
I'm still muted.
Nope, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. First of all, I was going to say a lot of these people are bringing up some very good issues, and I've been listening to them, thinking of things I didn't even think about. So I'll start with mine. Hello, my name is Julie Feltus. I'm a member of a disproportionately impacted community in Lakewood, Colorado. I moved to Colorado from Illinois when I was 10 years old because my father was transferred here. Love the state, love the beauty, open spaces, the mountains, and everything else Colorado offers. After finishing high school, I attended college at Metro State College and Red Rocks Community College. I finally earned my bachelor's degree in business administration at the University of Phoenix. I started working for the city of Denver at age 20 as a microfilm clerk and quickly rose through the ranks as an administrative assistant 3 and was eventually promoted to the accounting department supervisor. I worked for the city for 32 years. Over the years, while driving to and from Lakewood, I would notice the smog that used to hang over the city. It looked pretty gross and disgusting. In my later years, I noticed that the smoke was lessening, and I'm sure that many of the regulations were responsible, and I appreciate that. Now, when I look at the downtown area, I rarely see any smog. I know that Colorado's regulations have been responsible for that. Our water is some of the best ever. I usually drink tap water right out of the faucet. Believe me, you cannot do that everywhere. I realize that keeping our air and water clean is a priority. However, more regulations tend to make things more expensive. Our heat and electric bills, as well as water bills, keep going up. These are not frivolous spending. These are necessities. Now that my situation has changed and I am living on a fixed income because I'm retired, I worry about running out of money for necessities. I'm only 70, but I've got longevity in my family and I'm in pretty decent health. What happens when I can no longer afford to heat my home? Will I warm up by the fireplace with a wood fire? Will I forego food to keep warm? What about other people who can't afford as much as I can? Regulations to keep us healthy are great. However, over-regulating when it is not necessary will create more problems in the long run. Please take these things into consideration when looking at making the regulations more burdensome. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate your sticking with us to the bitter end. Hearings Manager Thomas, do we have anyone else that has raised their hand that they got not recognized?
Yes, we have 3 more, 2 phone numbers, and then iPad who disconnected earlier. So I will go through these one by one. The first one, I believe, is Miss Buki, who we tried to allow to speak earlier. So we will try again. Ms. Buki, you just need to hit *6 and you should be able to speak. I'm asking her to unmute as well, and we're not having much luck.
Why don't we recognize iPad and find out who they are?
iPad has been elevated, so they'll just need to unmute and put their camera back on. They should be able to speak.
Unmute there.
Yes, hi. Can you identify yourself?
Hi. Well, I can't start the video. I guess you have to. If you
Nope.
can hear me, that's enough.
We can hear you and see you.
Okay. My name is Rose Porter. I am a 4th generation native of Colorado, specifically of Colorado Springs. We raised 3 amazing kids here, and now there are 4 grandchildren, 2 of them who live here as well. I've seen a lot of changes as things have grown in my city. One of the things that is not very pleasant is all the growth and things that go with it. And along with that was the smog that we used to experience along the Front Range. I would like to thank the ECMC for their diligence and for the appropriate regulations to help clean up the air. We all want fresh air. We all want clean water. I'm not going to talk about the cost of living. You guys have heard it. I've been listening in since the very beginning. You open a utility bill just like I do. You go to the grocery store just like I do. My bigger concern is one of artificial intelligence. Colorado Springs and El Paso County has 5 military installations. We have Schreiber Space Force Base, we have NORAD, we have the Air Force Academy. Artificial intelligence is going to be used a lot. It will most certainly put a strain on our electrical grid. We cannot afford to not be energy independent at this time in our nation's state and in our city's state. We are all precariously close to the R word, recession, that nobody wants to mention. The 5 units that a small company uses to power their AI takes the same energy every day as it takes for an electric to run 5 homes. Now, if you see the pictures we all have of warehouses of these, you can only imagine how that is going to affect our electrical grid. Colorado Springs certainly is not set up for that. We're already experiencing outages that nobody's willing to call brownouts. So I would encourage you to maintain the regulations you have done. They're working, and we're all happy about that. But please, please consider the electrical grid and the strain that artificial intelligence is going to have on that grid. I would also like to point out that I am in a DIC as well, and I support you and what you've done to clean this up, very much so.
Thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you. Thank
being
you
with
guys
us.
for your effort and for listening. It matters to us.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Hearings Manager Thomas.
We're still waiting on last 4 digits 6011. They have not been able to unmute. We have one more hand raised for phone number last 4 digits 9624. I've allowed them to talk if they can unmute as well. So,
all right. Whichever phone unmutes first gets to go first.
Hello.
Hey, 9624. Tell us who you are.
My name is, I'll go quick and I will try not to be redundant. My name is Cliff Tygeson. I live in Boulder, Colorado, but I earn my income and my businesses are in Alaska. And I just quick story in Alaska. We tried to put a pipeline in a number of years ago because we had a customer in Germany that wanted to buy our natural gas. All right, we went ahead and filed for approval on all of that. Took years. Finally got the approval, and then of course we had to run the gauntlet of environmental specialist, and we got through all of that. Finally got our permit to do our natural gas pipeline, send gas to Germany, only to find out that everybody walked away. Germany bought their gas from Canada. So my point being is, you know, there is an economic impact. Now, sure, we lost some population in Alaska. Most of it wound up going down to North Dakota, and others just faded away. It was not a disaster for the state, but it was a major blow because a third of our income in Alaska is oil and gas. Now, having said that, I won't go through all of the other stuff because it's very apparent to everyone that's talked tonight, all they want is a better Colorado, however we get there. You guys, I wouldn't want to be on your committee to push and pull from all directions. And you've done, I just don't know how you put up with all of that, but that's great. So I'll follow up with what's my point. The point is this could happen in Colorado, let's face it. And in Colorado, the oil and gas industry's economics is far more significant to the state of Colorado than our business that we had going in Alaska. So it could be, just a very much of a negative situation when once again, everybody I'm listening to tonight, all they want is a better Colorado. We all want the same thing. Now let's face it, the world is still going to use natural resources. Some of that comes from Colorado. So I urge you, let's not spend any more money on anything but making Colorado better together. Again, I'll jump over a couple of things, but let's not give our resources to North Dakota, Kansas, Texas. We're all friends. but Colorado needs it, wants it, and we can make a better Colorado together. You guys have done a great job. I won't even bother you with any more of the redundant conversation, but don't do what we did in Alaska and get stuck. That's
Thank
my
you,
point.
Thank you, Mr. Thagason. Appreciate your being with us and testifying this evening. One last shot at the phone number ending in 6011. If they hit *6, they might be able to unmute and then we could hear from them. Well, looks like that's not happening.
Yes, no luck, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, maybe if you can reach out to them, Hearings Manager Thomas, maybe tomorrow and let them know that they could probably testify tomorrow evening. We do have another evening public hearing tomorrow night. Commissioners, with that, we've gone through the list of the folks that had signed up to testify tonight. It was kind of stop and start, but we did get through almost everybody that signed up, so that's good. To everyone that's listening in, this will be posted to the portfolio for cumulative impacts and enhanced system and practices rulemaking. We are doing this again tomorrow evening at 5:30. We've got about the same amount, about 45 people that have signed up to testify tomorrow evening. So if you would like to listen in and or testify, and you signed up, then we look forward to hearing from you tomorrow night. We also are reconvening our cumulative impacts and enhanced systems and practices rulemaking tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Zoom. And we will continue with cases in chief from the parties that signed up to participate with us. So with that, I wish everybody a good evening, and we will re-adjourn tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. That's on September 5th. Thanks, everybody.